going by the trend of sustained growth in Nigeria's telecommunications sector that has been recorded since 2022, mobile subscription in the country witnessed a surge of 4.61 million to hit 226.84 million subscribers in 1 year. According to the latest industry statistics from the Nigerian Communications Commission, mobile internet subscription grew to 156.42 million, with broadband penetration rising to 48.49% and subscriptions hitting 92.56 million. The report also shows that in the month of February this year, the total number of subscriptions rose to 226 million from the 225.88 million that was recorded in January 2022. I introduced him earlier. He's Mr. Idowu Akinde. He's a startup coach. We'll be understanding this and other issues around the Startup Act. Thank you so much, Mr. Akinde. It's good to see you. We now have Mr. Idowu Akinde, who's a startup coach, with us to speak around the improvement we've seen in the figures from the NCC regarding subscription, mobile subscription. Mr. Idowu, I was asking you, what is driving these positive figures that we're seeing along that line?
Thank you very much, Tolu. Thank you for having me today. So, I mean, this time around, the reasons, are quite obvious. First of all, we are still recovering from the effects of the pandemic of a few years ago, right? So remember that people's natural inhibitions or defenses toward full technology adoption or full technology integration into their personal lives were all eroded. Whomever did not want to be fully digital during the pandemic, everybody was forced to be digital. We all worked through Zoom meetings and digital remote mechanisms. So that effect is still tapering out, right? Thinning out. And then on top of that, we've had a recent drive by the CBN, right? To the recent cashless drive by the CBN, right? Which essentially means the lady that sells ewa going and agege bread on my street, who may not have ever imagined that she would be digital, right, must now have some kind of, at the very least, a smartphone, right, with which she can check her account balance and verify that the customer that just sent her 350 naira or 800 naira, indeed, she has received that money so that she can release the ewa and bread, right? So multiply that by the thousands of people like her, the people in the markets, the vulcanizers, the mechanics, just multiply that by people at the bottom of the pyramid, and you see that, it kind of makes sense, the huge numbers that we've seen recorded by the NCC report. So, I mean, the drivers are obvious.
Our internet service providers, many would have, different reservations around this. Well, just yesterday, another deal was signed that some markets, some airports should have internet services for those that will be wherever are the locations. But my question really will be, what is your assessment of the level of our internet connectivity?
Well, I always like to start by saying that whenever I want to comment on internet and its readiness as an infrastructure layer for a fully digital Nigeria, I always like to say that the level of user experience, the level of user internet or internet user experience that the common man on the streets of Lagos, you and I, experience today is significantly a better experience than what we had 5 years ago. So let's start from there. So do we have the kind of internet that cannot be better? Is at the peak of its possible performance in terms of expectations? No. But are we where we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 7 years ago? Definitely not, right? Today, in terms of I would say uptime, I would say bandwidth in terms of the size of things that you can do. I think that, yes, our internet service providers are getting better. So it is not strange, right, a few years ago, 5 years ago, if you met any movie buff, somebody who loves watching movies, most likely that person has a hard drive onto which they collect their movies, and then they take it home, plug it to their smart TV, and play movies. Nowadays, I cannot remember the last time I saw anybody with a hard drive full of movies. Nowadays, what do? People stream movies, and that tells you something. If people are comfortable streaming movies, then to a degree, the level of pain or friction or dissatisfaction with streaming movies must be at a minimum. At least it must be something that is not, the discomfort is not great enough to stop them from streaming the movies. The same thing with music. Nobody stores MP3 files on their phones and laptops anymore. Everybody streams from Apple Music, Spotify, blah, 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 Google Music and the others. So in terms of that, I think that we've gotten better. In my specific field, the startup world, are we 100% in terms of performance, right? Because there's a certain minimum threshold we need to get to that will really enable a digital Nigeria. And let me explain. Say you want to automate all the traffic lights, right, in Lagos. And you want to put them on some kind of master control system and stuff like that, right? Some kind of master network that will require some serious investments. One of those layers, one of those infrastructure layers is the network quality. So back to my point, do we have the kind of network quality in terms of uptime today that we can put hospitals on it and be sure that a doctor or a surgeon will not have a 5-second lag when he's trying to request information in real time? An aeroplane will not, a traffic light will not malfunction in the middle of traffic and stuff like that. Are we at the level where we have the network quality to support those city-wide mega infrastructure? Not yet. But are we where we were 5 years ago? No. So I would give them a 50-50 pass mark. Does that answer your question?
Does. Because time is already fast spent considering the challenges we had with the network. Let's talk about the Startup Act now and what it means for the industry. I know that interests you so much. You play so much in that space. Tell us what you think and what are your expectations. Maybe some other time we'll have more elaborate chats around the prospects and, of course, the challenges surrounding that act.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. Okay, so the startup bill, which has become an act, which essentially means it's operational, is one of the really, really best things to happen to the startup ecosystem in recent times, the Nigerian startup ecosystem in recent times. There are a couple of other similar things. There's the recent news about the setup of the kickoff of a $672 million fund by the Office of the Presidency, and stuff like that, kicked off by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. And those are things that we've been asking for. Many times on this channel, on this show, I've asked for tax rebates. I've asked for special funds to support these, startups and the digital economy. And we're seeing that, special regulations, right? And we're seeing that these things are coming to pass. We as a startup community, eagerly await the implementation, because we understand that it's one thing to make a policy statement, it's another thing to see its execution and implementation. So we really, really, really look forward to a good implementation of these policies, if I may use that word loosely, these policies that have been released by the federal government. They are good signals. They encourage the local population of young people that are building new businesses, because it means that this, the government is finally listening to our cries. So it's good in terms of motivation. It's also good in terms of signaling to the international investment community. So if there's somebody in San Francisco, somebody in London, somebody in Brussels, somebody in Singapore that is thinking of investing in Nigerian startup, if they search Nigerian startup investment. And they see these types of articles, the National Startup Bill, the 672 million naira fund, and other things. It's encouraging to them because it signals to them outside that Nigeria is a fertile place to invest in, right? So these are good developments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Idowu Akinde. Thank you so much for your patience despite the challenges. Idowu Akinde is a startup coach. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Sure have another chat anytime soon.